morning and welcome. You're watching Citizen TV. This is a Power Breakfast News Review with me, Freddie Ndimuli. The headline today, as expected, President-elect, this is a big one we were waiting for yesterday. Second time lucky, they ask President-elect Uhuru Kenyatta re-elected in repeat poll. Attention now turns to Raila Odinga's next move. On the Standard, Chebukati declares Uhuru 7,483,895 total number of votes Uhuru got. This is exactly the same number the Citizen TV Tallying Center managed to get. Kudos to Citizen TV. We were the only media house that managed to run an entire tallying center and got the numbers right. How about that? Why all eyes are on Raila Odinga today? A NASA responsive position expected to respond to IEBC declaration of Uhuru as winner and to give their supporters way forward after skipping repeat poll. But it should not escape our attention that 1 million pupils start national examinations today. KCPE, a total of 1,003,000 candidates are sitting the KCPE exams starting this morning for the next 3 days. KCSE kicks off next week. Let's start from there. Yes, it's been a very chaotic, a rather chaotic electioneering period, but we need to take a breather and allow the KCPE candidates to do the exams, even as some sections of the country continue celebrating their election win. But in as far as the elections, the KCPE exams, probably a comment from you.
Well, the children sitting the exams today represent our future.
Yes.
And the least we can do is wish them the very best in the exams.
Yes, that's Amos Kimunya MPKP period. My apologies for failing to introduce you. Amos Kimunya MPKP period, Professor Jacqueline Odol nominated MP, make our news review panel this morning, but Kimunya continues.
But the least we can do today, and this comes from my heart, is to wish the candidates the very best in the exams. They've been prepared by their teachers, they've been prepared by the parents, they've been supported by the government system, and we wish them the very best, and we hope that they will come out shining, and we look forward to celebrating with them in a month's time.
But there is a concern, Professor Jacqueline Odwall. Some sections of this country are not happy with what's happening politically. Some sections feel disenfranchised. They don't feel like part of the country. Yet there are candidates from that section of the country as well who are sitting for exams. What can you tell them this morning?
I think, thank you very much, Fred. What I can say is that I urge those children to remember that Kenya says it is 80% Christian. I don't know whether it practices it, but I would urge them to remember that with God nothing is impossible, and that all things work together for good. I want to remind Kenyans that the young girls and boys who are doing their exam today have come of age in Kenya, because they are those who have been born and brought up in very turmoil, effort to make a change. And on Sunday in church, a young boy who was going to do exam prayed, and it touched us in church because he prayed that God should give Kenya a leader that is elected by the people and not that is imposed on the people. So I would just want to say, as I wish all the kids good luck, that they need to be bold and to be courageous, and that they need to remember that if the fathers have sinned, the very good book also tells us that if children rise up, if they remember chapter 6 of our constitution, if they stand up to speak the truth, then I think they are going to give us the future we've been fighting for.
And still on this issue of exams, because elections do happen every 5 years, the kind of date set for an election, an August election, the possibility of a runoff, it could happen again in 5 years' time, that we find ourselves, the electioneering period goes and even overlaps with the examination period. There are those who say that we should try and change this. Would you support a move to change and adjust the election date so that it does not in any way interfere with exams?
I agree totally. I support totally, because I've seen the interruption. We started these elections in April with the party nominations. It's bang in just after the first term. We went in after that into some campaign period. Then we completed the elections in August, Then there was a dispute. We've interfered with the calendar. And I do remember at some point, even in 2012, we had even suggested that we should shift the election date from August to end of November, or just beginning of
outside the school term.
Outside the school term, before the December festivities, but outside the school, because it's a major interference with the school children, and it doesn't matter whether you look at it from the election day, because that's what people kind of look at and say the elections are taking place within the school system on election day. But remember that elections take place, through a process in the campaign period.
Yes. With
all the microphones, with all the shenanigans taking place during the electioneering period. You get school kids. After 3 o'clock, they are in the campaign rallies and they are watching.
But we cannot really avoid this, because even if we push the elections into December, it means the months leading up to December will witness heightened campains. And that's what
but the heightened campaign is probably in the last 3 weeks. Okay, so we had it sometimes towards the end of November. Then the schools will close at the end of October. Then we have 1 month when they are on holiday, right? Okay, when the heat of the campaign really peaks.
Professor Jacqueline Oduol, of course, the drafters of the Constitution, as we now know it, must have thought about these things. They must have thought.
No, they actually didn't, because I was there.
So it was. Do you agree that probably they did not think enough with regard to this?
I am not quite sure. I know that Waziri Mheshimiwa was among the drafters. I was sort of...
I was in Bomas.
I know. But I was also an observer, number 36 in Bomas. Very, very active civil voice. But I wasn't really in terms of like the final, if you like, voice. But what I would say is that I don't think we need to change the date of the exam. I think we just...
The election date.
The election, sorry. Yes. I don't think we need to change the election date. I think what we need to be true to is our Constitution. And in my view, the only thing that we have not really addressed is Chapter 6 of this Constitution. I believe that if we were, as Kenyans, to do some soul searching, and if we are to ask the hard questions, I think the very fact that we have a country where we are celebrating, but we are celebrating when there are those who are not part of it, speaks to what it is that the drafters were thinking of. The drafters wanted us to get strong sense of nationhood. The drafters wanted us to get some degree of discipline. The drafters wanted us to be responsible. So I would go more for getting us to be a lot more true to the spirit of the Constitution and not use the letter of the Constitution to play politics.
Also joining the panel this morning, Kipruto Rapkirwa, Deputy Party Leader ANC. It's good to have you, sir. Karibu sana.
It's my pleasure.
We're looking at, even before we come to the big headline about the declaration of Uhuru Kenyatta as president, we're looking at the fact that over 1 million pupils are sitting for their KCPE exam starting this morning. I think the first paper will be out at 9, and that's when they're sitting for that. And we're just discussing in relation to the electioneering period and the possibility, because this is the very first time we're experiencing an election in August. And we've seen what has happened, the dispute in the Supreme Court, and this declaration that you have another repeat poll after 60 days. It could have been the same if none of the candidates got the required 50% plus 1, would have had to go for a runoff. Yeah, and all these things are in the law. But the fact that it is interfering and seemingly appearing to overlap with the election, with the exam period, it definitely does affect the candidates. Do you agree that it's time we relook at that, the election date? Bring it, Amos Kimunya, the MP for Kipipiri, suggests that we push it probably into December, just to avoid overlapping with the exams. Do you agree?
Well, there are a number of other issues that we need to look at in the Constitution, and the number of years that now we've had this Constitution with us allows us to make an in-depth analysis on many other issues that probably at the time the Constitution was being drafted, we never had them clear in our minds. Date of election is one. Of course, apart from the exam timetable, from where I come from, Trans Nzoia, August is not the best month, with a lot of rain, and that is true for Western Kenya. And it affects more than half of this country. And you realize the short rains that we had the other day also affected in some parts the turnout. And December is relatively a very dry month, and it is something that we may need to relook as we look at other things that inform our decision as a nation. And the other thing, I would just also wanted to wish all the candidates the best, and also pass my condolences to the family, relatives, and those who fraternity of the Catholic Church of Eldoret on the demise of Bishop Korir. Yes.
That's also part of the headlines, of course, yes, on the inside pages, the death of Bishop Cornelius Korir, the Eldoret Catholic Bishop for the Diocese of Eldoret. He passed on yesterday, and yes, now that Bwana Kiputara Piro has already jumped the gun and gone there, I would have done it a bit later, but now I should give you also an opportunity probably to send your message of condolence to the family. I
actually do that as a Catholic. I know we've lost one of our best peacemakers. He came out very strongly in terms of protecting the victims of violence, especially politically instigated violence. And at this point, when we are just emerging from the elections and have been seeing a bit of pockets of violence, I think the best we can do as a tribute to the late bishop is to call off any instigations in the radicalization of the youth, in the violence instigated by, especially by our challengers, the NRM. As an honor to a man who spent all his life basically protecting the people affected by politically instigated violence. But having said that, I think I also wish to congratulate the Kenyans who came out in their large numbers on 26th of October.
Yes, we're coming to that.
Which will come to that.
We're coming to that
because that's why we are here today.
Yes.
And by just it's a coincidence that here we have a champion of peace passing on just the day before the validation of the results.
Actually, yes, it was almost to the date, the same day.
The same day, as the results of presidential elections are being validated. And I would have wished he would have been there to actually celebrate, because he's been a champion of peace. Yes. And to see, for him to enjoy the fruits of what he's been working for.
Professor Odwol,
thank you. As a Christian and actually as a Catholic, I also would like to join all Kenyans, particularly the family of Bishop Korir and the entire Catholic Church and Christian fraternity. I really do believe that nothing just happens, and I believe that as we remember Bishop, we need to bear in mind that we all are not going to be here forever, and that we will be remembered for two things: the problems that we solve or the problems that we cause. I think Bishop is someone who is a leading light in being part of a solution, and I particularly want to commend him and ask all Christians, particularly Catholics, to stand up for justice and to remember that God is really not man that he should lie, so we shouldn't come up with sugar-coated peace, trying to cover the wound, but we should make sure that we also look at the deep-rooted issues that would cause violence, because I think this is what bishops do.
Yes, outspoken Eldoret Catholic Bishop Cornelius Korir died in hospital yesterday after a short illness. The headlines, there's two headlines on page 10 of the Standard to do with this, of the Daily Nation. Peacemaking bishop leaves a big gap in politically volatile region. He was crucial in initiating dialogue between warring groups in the Northwest, and especially politically instigated hostilities that were prompted by elections. Top leaders grieved the renowned church head. On the Standard, page 8 and 9, shock as Catholic Bishop Korir dies after an illness, and the cleric was a true pacifier. That's the other headline. Uhuru Moi Mon departed prelate. Those are the headlines to do with the sudden death of outspoken Eldoret Catholic Bishop Cornelius Korir, who passed on yesterday. He was known as a peacemaker. Let's now go to the biggest headline today, and it has to do with that declaration by IEBC of Uhuru Kenyatta as duly elected president. He is now president-elect, awaiting a swearing-in, barring any legal processes that may be initiated in the next 7 days. But even as we do that, Mwende Mwinzi, former candidate for MP, joins the panel. Good morning, Karibu Sara.
Good morning.
Yes, it's good to have you here. Yes, some people are celebrating, some are not.
Everyone is.
Let's start from there.
No, I think everyone in Kenya is celebrating for different reasons.
Okay.
First of all, everyone is celebrating that we have brought to a close an electioneer period.
Have we?
Are you sure?
Yes,
I'm not sure.
I'm sure we have.
That's the biggest question. Have we really?
I'm sure we have. Because for once, I've now been part of this since August the 8th. Okay, before August I was a candidate, and I went through the process as a candidate. Between the 8th and the 26th, I was an agent. Okay, and as an auditor, as a professional accountant with 30 years experience, I was very keen to actually see the process that was challenged by the courts, and I went through it until the very end. Okay, and for once I was satisfied that we actually have a system that works.
So you say this is the end because you're satisfied that even if challenged in court, the process will come out.
Yes,
clean.
and I'm prepared to actually go and give expert witness.
Okay.
Evidence.
Okay.
And I was for once I saw the chairman of the IEBC very confident, going through the process. Okay, what they went through, the changes they made, the staff he used. Okay, I verified all the 34 A's myself, 107 of them, reconciled them to what was on the IEBC, what them being transmitted, and I was very convinced that actually, when you actually participate in this electoral process, you actually realize we have a system that works. Okay, so I was actually happy that we actually brought to a close, but more importantly, that to know that we actually have a system that we can depend on to deliver the will of Wanjiko, all right? You know, and the several Wanjikos across the country, all right? And translate it into a collective will to say who do they want to lead them.
When the MP for Kipipiri is celebrating the process he saw, he says the process, according to him, we've really moved forward.
Yes.
It's an improvement, probably even from August the 8th.
Yes.
What are you celebrating?
Well, first of all, let me just echo his sentiments because I also happen to be an agent. And let's remember that the court did not challenge the numbers that the president won by. The court challenged the process. I partook in that process myself. I was the chief agent from Wingi West. I was in the tallying center until 4:30 in the morning, cross-eyed but very proud as a Kenyan that here were boxes, here were ballot boxes that were sealed. Here were agents that came with their numbers. The numbers where there was any dispute, you know, the dispute or any complaint or just general observation was recorded. There is a process in place, and, you know, one can always refer to it. One can always go back to the ballot boxes. One can always go back to the Form 34As. And
would you say, for example, there was an improvement between what happened on August the 8th and what happened on
without a shadow of doubt. And if you listened to Chebukati yesterday, he also said, you know, elections are a process. They're not, you know, a single event. And I think tomorrow will still be better than we are today. There's still room for improvement.
Professor Odwal, I know you do not agree that you are celebrating, but if at all there was an improvement in the process between August the 8th and October 26th, that actually the process became better, was improved to some extent, that is something to celebrate, don't you think?
I would want to say that as much as I respect the opinion of my distinguished colleagues, I find it a very difficult moment as a member of parliament to celebrate an election that in terms of turnout, even if we didn't zero in to specific areas, indicated that there was a disquiet in the country. I happen to be a strong believer that what we must do is recognize that communication is something that is complex, can be non-verbal, and usually when there is a sense of intimidation and fear, the non-verbal counts more. As far as I'm concerned, because unlike my colleagues who are agents, I happen to be a member of parliament put in the difficult situation of watching police brutalize young men and women, of watching during election, contrary to the constitution which says that free and fair election will be free of intimidation, will have a sense of fairness. From my perspective, and that's what I can speak for, I cannot speak for them. The tragedy is that we are one Kenya, and that's really where the problem is. From my perspective, I have never ever seen that degree of intimidation, and I think it is extremely unfortunate. My sincere hope is that the one thing that we can celebrate is that the struggle continues. Aluta continues.
And
we can
in the process,
the process. Even when you look at it, you will see that the kinds of proposals that were made in a law that really, as the president-elect said yesterday, had still not come into effect, were really what the IEBC applied. The process was a confidence that you see in a chair of IEBC that cannot convince even a small child, because the turnaround and the manner in which the president and the chair of IEBC was speaking, you could see that there was absolutely no independence of integrity. So I would like to celebrate that we still live another day. I'd like to celebrate that we have different institutions. I'd like to celebrate that Kenyans really, from what I have seen, are very resilient, and I pray that God gives us a chance to continue to fight and to achieve the goal we have always looked for.
NASA will continue to challenge this election and challenge its legitimacy based on other things, voter turnout, the fact that Raila Odinga withdrew from the process but his name was still on the ballot. But that, when it comes to the process and what we saw this time round in comparison to what we saw on August the 8th, in as far as even election results transmission, I'm sure you've been following the proceedings. Do you think that improvement, because practice does make perfect, when the next time we do have an election, probably IEBC will be much better prepared. Do you think that's something to celebrate?
Well, it begins from your statement that Raila was not part of the process, and yet he was constrained to be part of the process up to the end. It's like a game of football, somebody forcing you into the field, running around with the ball, scoring himself once in a while, and also scoring your goal when there is no goalkeeper. Number two, this is the lowest turnout since independence. There is no elections that, for the 12 elections that we've had, this is the lowest turnout, and it should inform the system that 62% of Kenyans kept away. Whatever the reason that you want to sort of stereotype that it's Luo Nyanza that kept away, the rest of the country kept away. Trans Nzoia, 1/3 of the people turned up, the rest of us we kept away, and many other parts of this country. Now, where we are, yes, I do accept that the process might have had an improvement from the streaming in of the information, only that Chebukati made it worse. It is unfortunate that he has allowed his name to enter the annals of history as a bad name. I remember yesterday saying that he's been vilified and his family has been vilified to the same extent. But the truth of the matter is that had he been more forthright about the turnout of 48%, about the turnout of 6.5 million people, later on for figures to change up to 7.65. Those are some of the issues that he needed to be clearer than he was. Number two, remember that of course there is a petition already in court, and even after that petition, should the results be upheld by Supreme Court, there is still another political process that we must engage in as Kenyans. Otherwise we are pretending.
And we'll be looking at the way forward in a short while. Of course, all eyes are on Raila Odinga today. That's the top strip of the Standard. That's how it reads. Why all eyes are on Raila today is expected to make a big statement. As well as the fact that there's a quote here from President Uhuru Kenyatta when he was speaking yesterday. He says, "My victory today is part of a process likely to be subjected to the test in the courts. We shall wait for all the electoral processes to be exhausted before we can talk of dialogue. Let them first and foremost exhaust their constitutional right before deciding on the need for dialogue. I will not jump the gun." Even the President himself seems to attest to the fact that there will be another process after this. We'll be discussing that after the break.